fooled me. Why are you all so far away? Because I'm going to tell you now, it's not going to matter where you are in this park when I decide to set this thing off. I have a special message for those people partying out on the sandbar. Oh, right. We're not shooting it off just yet, folks. Save your energy. I know you folks are all excited to see that cannon go off, aren't you? But before we get to that loud, noisy thing, I'm going to spend just a few minutes with you talking about another important weapon that the Spanish brought here in 1565, and it happens to be a bit quieter. And what do you all call this?
Crossbow.
A crossbow. That's right. That is in fact what you call it in this day and age. But in the 16th century, this weapon went by some very different names. Chiefly amongst those, if you spoke English, you called this an arbalest. If you spoke Spanish, you called it a ballesta. The point is, it's had a lot of different names over the centuries because what you're looking at here is in fact an ancient weapon. In addition to that, many of us kind of tend to think of this as a medieval European invention because it was widely used over in Europe, but it's not. This was actually given to us by the same people who invented gunpowder and fireworks and all that really fun, cool stuff. Who might they be?
Chinese.
That's right, the Chinese. All the way back in 600 BC, the Chinese came up with this. So like I said, this is an ancient weapon. Now, fast forward to Pedro Menendez's time of 1565 on the battlefields of Europe. These are rapidly becoming obsolete. They're being replaced by a newer, better technology. What do you suppose that is? Guns. Guns are on their way in and crossbows are on their way out. But there's nothing wrong with them. They're not broken and they still work. And just like today, just because you're going to replace a weapon, it doesn't mean you take it and you throw it away either. They took these and they put them in military warehouses and storehouses, places like that. Now Pedro Menendez is putting together his expedition to come here, and he has to fund that entire expedition out of his own pocket. So, like all of us, spending his own money, he was looking for bargains. And he got his bargain in these. They were basically the buy one, get one free special of the 16th century. Now when he comes here to establish the colony of St. Augustine in that open field there behind him, he does something a little unusual. He came here with 800 people, men, women, and even some children. And now I'd like all of you to think about that sensibly. That's 800 people for a brand new colony where you're just planning to sail your way over here, plant your flag on the ground, and set up shop. Sound a little off to any of you? Now with so many hungry mouths to feed and so few supplies aboard their ships, they had to do one thing in particular here to sustain themselves. Here to guess what that is? That's right, they had to hunt. Now I don't know if any of you folks are hunters, but I'm sure you know a big rule about hunting. You don't want to make a lot of noise while you're doing it, right? Now if you've been in this park long enough to hear that matchlock arquebus over there go off, you know that guns back then were anything but quiet. This weapon, on the other hand, we'll have a listen to it, shall we? Hear all the noise it doesn't really make? Just as this weapon is still occasionally used today, it is a powerful, accurate, and mostly silent weapon. You're not going to scare away any game when you're hunting. You hear that, but what's the point, really? You're going to go home hungry. The other great thing about this weapon being so quiet, the simple fact of the matter is that to the Spanish, this is the New World. Uncharted frontier land. So they really don't know who else or what else might be out here listening. So if you think about that, the last things you really want to do is be out there within a hunting party, set off one of those guns, make a big explosion, a whole lot of noise obviously, and maybe attract some undue attention, and maybe some even more unwelcome company to your hunting party. I don't even think people these days, out in the woods hunting, like uninvited guests when they're out there doing it, do they? So, this weapon saw a little bit of continued use here in colonial St. Augustine, but as we kept finding new and better ways to make guns, this weapon found itself going further and further by the wayside, as it were, until it virtually disappeared for a time, but making a comeback now, which I think is absolutely amazing and awesome. Now, you folks ready for a nice afternoon wake-up call?
Yeah.
Yes, folks. You know those people out on the sandbar are hang on.
Is that a real cannonball? Well, what we're going to demonstrate for you here in a minute is our reproduction of a very old-fashioned, obsolete cannon, even in 1565. They called it a bombardette. And what it was a 6-pounder, because of the 6-pound ball, muzzle-loading, breech-charged iron gun. So what's all that mean? Well, that means that the 6-pound cannonball was the only thing that went down the barrel. The gunpowder and the wadding went into a container known as a servidor. We have one sitting behind it, that cylinder with the rings on it, and we have one loaded in there just like it. And in that we have gunpowder and wadding. Now those were slid into the rear of the cannon and held in place by a wooden block. And then once that was loaded, somebody would roll the cannonball down the barrel and they would prime it and fire it. Now, in those days, they would have 4 or 5 servidors for every cannon, and a gun crew of up to 5 men could easily switch those out quickly and reload them, and they kind of cycled through. They were able to, for a short period of time, get off as many as 3 or 4 shots a minute with those, which is pretty fast rate of fire for a cannon. But they were weak guns. The way they were made was not very strong, and they were really restricted to small cannonballs like this. Now, this is not very impressive. Doesn't explode. But when it came out of the barrel of the gun, it was traveling at about 400 miles an hour. And if they used a full load of gunpowder, that cannonball could fire and shoot about as far away as that Bridge Alliance is, which is 9/10 of a mile. They say these things could actually fire about just under a mile, so that's a pretty good indicator. But they couldn't hit a target they were aiming at that distance, but at about half that distance the gunners were trained to hit targets. And with that fast rate of fire, the 20 cannons that Pedro Menendez found for practically no money, and then he brought them here, and he fortified this whole area in through here with them. So if he had been attacked, which he was not, they would have been facing 20 cannons firing 3 or 4 shots a minute. It's a lot of iron flying out here, I'll tell you that. Now, when I mentioned a full load of gunpowder, back in the day, the formula for black powder cannons was to use half the weight of your projectile in black powder. So with a 6-pound ball, that would be 3 pounds of gunpowder. And that's about equivalent to today's 3 sticks of dynamite. So guess what we're not going to do? We're going to use a very, very small portion of that, about 2 ounces actually, but it's going to sound much louder than you think it is. You will be impressed. You're going to see it, hear it, feel it, and see where the flag is pointing. And get all the smoke off of it too. Now, it's not so loud that it's going to damage your hearing, and we are not going to fire a real cannonball. Sorry. Coast Guard doesn't like it much. So we won't do that, but we do recommend that the little ones cover your ears because you still have developing hearing, and everybody else should be fine. So, point your device and put your fingers on the button, because when the gun goes off and you flinch, you might just catch the gun going off at the right instant. So, are you ready?
Yep.
Yeah. Por España. Fuego. Well, can you imagine 3 pounds of gunpowder with that much sound? Of course, that gun would have rolled back several feet. So, hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer them. Well, if not, enjoy the rest of your day here, the rest of the park.